What's up, everybody? It's your favorite Coast Guard's favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the X-Transbots Jian. Their take on blades. I got this fresh out the box, and ooh, my first impressions are not good, but perhaps funny. You can check those out on Patreon. Yikers Island. I have big concerns about this figure, but there's only one way to confirm those concerns, or dispel those concerns, and that's to review this figure, but in order to do so, we need to start with accessories. So we'll start with these three faces. You get one with like a completely different like style eyes. Actually, there's different eyes on all three of them, honestly. The middle one has like a slight smile. The left one is slightly concerned. And the right one is more of like just a standard face with just a weird, maybe that's a toy? I don't know. Strange. But I like the expressions. They're all subtle. You know, there's nothing too extreme that like would dictate like the entire mood of the figure, but it still is expressive. He comes with these two rotor blades. They're painted this gunmetal silver, which looks cool. There's handles with pegs in them, which will barely fit into his hand, probably because of the paint. But he can hold it. Unfortunately, this shoulder is a little weak to hold it up, but the other one works much better. And then you can have like a wiffle ball bat or something. Or no, what is this? Cricket, like a cricket bat to hit you with. Now, they're meant to be stowed back here. And I think up, but I've seen pictures of it with it down also. And these two bits will rotate independently to allow you to sort of connect that, and then you can rotate the whole thing to have it up or down. And then you can even like lock them in, I guess, using these. You know, like if you want to have that where it's going to stay still, you know, totally up to you, but it's a feature. He comes with his two leg guns. They're identical. Just a white pearlescent plastic, decent enough sculpt. You have this tab here on the side, which will connect to a slot here on the outside of his calf. He comes with his two helicopter guns, and obviously they're meant for helicopter mode, but they do have long enough handles where he can, you know, wrap his fingers around them. You know, not the prettiest thing in the world, but it'll work. But they will attach right here to the side of the helicopter mode. He also comes with a pistol. White plastic, painted, sculpted nicely. Nothing really to say there. Pegs on the side of the handle. Connect inside of the palm in typical Masterpiece fashion, and then you wrap your fingers around. And this will insert underneath for helicopter mode so that you can store the weapon if you'd like. He comes with these two things for skiing. No, they're, I think, continuation of the helicopter bed. I'll show you how to utilize them, just painted white. So yeah, you can remove these from helicopter mode by sliding them out and then sliding these in if you just want like a more hyper-realistic aesthetic. Totally up to you. And lastly, he comes with the parts forming combiner arm, which is nice enough. And I'll just show you how to utilize this. It's when we get to the combine mode, we'll go through that in real time. But I'll show you how to utilize it for the helicopter mode right here. So rotate these out, these silver armatures. And then you want to have this, let's see, turned up. And we're gonna open up these flaps. And rotate this to the side and fold that down on itself. And then I think that's it. So that you have this sitting up there, and then they have these guides here that you can use to sort of put this in here, but it's meant to go with these, you know, but I mean, just so you know how to do it, right? Like that's the basic stand for it. Let's take a look at the figure, and we'll get in tight on the head sculpt for Dennis. Head sculpt looks good. And it's painted well. The white on this whole figure is painted like a pearlescent white. Looks great. Eyes are sculpted nicely and painted that blue. And then the face, I think, is painted blue as well. The head is on a ball peg, so you get a little bit of a confused Blaze look. You get decent up, maybe the slightest bit down in the swivel. Then we move on to the rest of the figure. So this red is painted, but it's not the best paint I've ever seen on a figure with the color red. Limited sculpted detail, but there is some in there in the chest. Waist swivel. Ab crunch is there a little bit, but the problem with the ab crunch is the range of motion for the ab crunch is pretty limited. It's like a hair. Can you see it? Like, that's it. Now watch it go back into position. There. So we're talking like the slightest range of motion. It will go beyond that, but when it does, it pulls apart these flank pieces which keep the innards together. But there is technically one there. Waist swivel we talked about. Okay. Arms painted white. We have the die cast pieces for the elbow. The silver actually from that die cast metal does pop. I appreciate that. The shoulders get you up to 90 degrees. They get you 360 around. And there is a butterfly joint that really is part of the transformation, but I think it technically works. And I don't just give out Billify or butterfly joints or ab crunches willy-nilly. So bicep swivel does butt up against this stuff, but, you know, that's a design thing. Not their fault necessarily. Double jointed elbow, that gets you the full range. Thumb is on a hinge, so the thumb actually swivels, which is strange. And then the fingers are on a base pen knuckle. The index finger is individually articulated, and it has typewriter fingers. So not ideal, but fine. Now, this is where things start to really get bad. Okay, so hip skirts get up and out of the way for forward movement. Side skirts get up and out of the way for lateral movement. Great idea. So the forward movement, ratcheted forward, full range forward. Backward movement, you get back to there, so pretty significant, almost the full Monty. The lateral movement is where the issue lies. So, because the rear hip skirt sits right on top of the thigh, when you go to move the hips out laterally, it rubs up against the thigh. And I haven't lost any paint yet, but it surely doesn't feel great. Shirley and Laverne. And then we have the hip skirts that can go back down. Thigh swivel. Single hinge knee. Get a little bit of sculpted detail there. I'll take it where I can get it. Then you have the lower legs, which feel very hollow, even though they're filled with plastic. The plastic is a very lightweight plastic on the entire figure. It also, these front panels are constantly coming unpegged. So not good. The ankles, you get an ankle tilt down, an ankle tilt up, and a rocker. And you see this panel's already come undone from that little bit of manipulation. It feels cheap. Very cheap. I don't know what else to say. It doesn't feel like, it certainly doesn't feel like the Constructicons, but it doesn't even feel like the rest of the Protectobots. It feels cheap. And that is a bummer. We'll take a look at the rear real quick, so to speak. Obviously, you got this bit in there. I've tried to take this off, but to no real avail. So, take that for what you will. Size comparison-wise, there it is with a Carbot and with Ironhide. All my other X-Transbots are in their combined mode, and I will not be changing them back. And the same goes for this guy if I can actually get him there. Here goes nothing. So collapse the fingers, collapse the thumb back against the hand. You have to open up this flap and tuck the hand in. The hand actually has an outward hinge as well, articulation-wise, just so you know. Tuck that in. We can close that back up, and then we're going to take the same for this side. So collapse the fingers, collapse the thumb, open up this panel, collapse the hand, close this panel. Rotate the forearm so that the panel that you had to flip open rotates to the back. So same on this side. Rotate your side of the helicopter here. You want to fold these up and rotate this back up. Make sure that that's all properly aligned. Rotate the elbow to the back, and then rotate the shoulder and all of this so that this sits inside of that casing, for lack of a better term. And then you're going to want to flip this piece up and flip it around, and then flip this piece out so that it builds kind of the whole side of that. So we're going to do the same on this side. We're going to rotate this around. We're going to rotate this down. We're going to make sure, actually we can pull, we'll do that last. We're going to make sure that that all lines up. We're going to rotate this up. These come all the way down. We're going to rotate that up. Okay, and then we're going to turn the elbow around. Oop. And then rotate the shoulder and the elbow so that it sits inside of there. And like I said, I'm going off of their video. If it's wrong, the video is almost impossible to follow. I'll fix it as we go. Rotate this down, rotate that up, and then I'm going to extend these skis on the other side as well. Okay, then we need to basically get this up in front of the head. So the whole panel here, let me find it, rotates, and then you got to tuck the arm along with it, and then up and around. So same on this side, the panel rotates, rotate the arm along with it, and then up and around, and then bring your butterfly or billify joints forward and rotate the shoulder back around so that they start to come together but are sitting in front of the head, if that makes sense. Okay. Red flap, white flap, white flap. Untab this. You can bring this up, start building the helicopter, flip all those three of those pieces out. Underneath the collarbone section, you want to flip out a white panel on each side and simultaneously flip in a white panel on each side. We also want to extend this waist section. On this panel, you want to split these apart. They'll rotate and get out of the way to flip in these red panels. And then I think you just put them like this. But I'll come back and fix that later on if it's not right. All right, then we have this section, which is his back on the other side of the red pieces. This flips up and over, and then these two panels swing down and lock in. Then we need to start building some of the front of the helicopter. So swing this down. Be mindful of this thing. That would be just the slightest bit easier if they would have allowed that to be detachable. Then bring this up. These doors tab into the side, and they're little tabs, so I have my doubts about them creating any real meaningful connection while you go on to the next couple steps. But once it's there, you want to open this up, There we go. And sit all of that there as nicely as you can against the windows to start building up the front of the helicopter, which is relatively intuitive because you know what a helicopter looks like. That's the only reason. Now the piece that the head is on, sit that up against the bottom. You don't need to lock it all in quite yet, according to their instructions anyway. Rotate the head around and then untab it and sit it back inside. And that's all we're going to do for the top part for the moment. Before we move on to the bottom, just so we don't forget, you do need to lower the hips, like the bottom part of the pelvis. There, you see? And then rotate that. Probably should have done that before we got this far. But that's not what the instructions say, so that's not what we did. And then reconnect. Rotate the foot out and straighten this foot. So there are a number of flaps, just unfurl them. And we're going to do the same on both sides. Now in the video, they're pretty clever. They make a quick cut around this. So this piece here comes out. If you flip this over, this piece collapses, as does the top piece, and then sits on top. And that's what they show. And I'll try to show that to you again. They're pretty tricky because this piece comes off and it has a tendency to. See if I can separate there. If you separate all of that, it gives you a little bit more wiggle room. And then once you get it to the 90 degrees, then you can flip that piece in and this piece in. This whole section here is pegged in to this panel so it can be removed. But you don't have to necessarily for transformation. It just has a tendency to do so. Then we have panels inside of here that need to open up. And there's another one that needs to extend as well. And then this piece, this flat piece, needs to flip over as well. And we're going to do that on both sides. There it is, back here on the back. So it was like this. Flip it open, open, open. Then on this section that's attached to the foot, you want to rotate the foot around on that hinge, the topmost one, so that you can swing it down and it sort of sits in line. And then you can tuck in, I think it's just that, so that that tabs together, okay? So I'm going to show you again. Flip that down. And then at the uppermost hinge, spin it around so that the foot sits collapsed against the screw. And then rotate it down. And then rotate the bottommost flap up. Bring this whole section up, spin 180, then this bottom section, you want to spin 180. So then you want to utilize this hinge and bring all of this out and around onto the other side. And then start extending these panels at the bottom. And then you have that panel as well. You don't need to do too much with that right this second. Then take this section and fold it back around the knee area, and that will tab in. So then we have to flip this leg as well. So bring that down and around. And you're going to want to extend this armature, which houses like the helicopter blade and stuff, and just get that as far out of the way as you can. And then this wraps around the knee as well, and that tabs in together. Now I undid this section here at the top because I think it's just going to make my life easier. But you need to bring all of this together get those arms out of your way. And you need to align all of these pieces. And the unfortunate thing is you got to undo a lot of this, it seems, for combine mode. But for the time being, we'll go ahead and try to get through it. Once you get all this piece here will flip over. And you have your two side red bits there. The propellers. And then make sure that these are lined up as well and kept clean for the underbelly. And then now is really just a matter of plugging it all in. So, you know how I feel about this sort of thing. I'm not going to waste a lot of your times. These are the sections. This you can kind of... Dude, I don't know why they wouldn't have just made that a removable piece. I mean, I'm taking this. You can take that piece off. So, and then just get these doors. There's just a number of tabs. Just get them in where they fit in. They're over, under. They're everywhere. Just build it around. I'll do this off camera. It's a pain, and we'll get back. So there it is, and that's pretty close. I'll show you what I don't have quite right, pardon me. Actually, let me give you a size comparison first. There it is with Tiger Track, so sizable unit. Underneath these bits here, they should tab on to those tabs there, but I can't get it over there. At least I think so, because it seems like it would line up right, but I can't get it anywhere near over there. The rest of it I've got right. Like, everything's plugged in. Everything sits nicely. This moves. This moves. Make sure your fins are up. Oh, that's a little loose fin. But, yeah. Whew. You know what? Like... It is involved, and it's confusing. That's the problem. It's a confusing transformation, but it's not all that challenging. Like, this is a far easier transformation than Fans Toys Ironhide or that Star Toys Tracks. It's just confusing as to how to get there. It's not intuitive. It's not all that challenging. It's just not intuitive at all. And I hope that goes for Combine Mode 2. Only time will tell, but at least from Robot to Helicopter, not the worst thing in the world. Not the best. Certainly not the best. Not the worst. Now let's talk about this a little bit. So, like, the windows here aren't lined up 100% properly. That's probably my fault during the transformation process. I love all the rivets and stuff, sculpting-wise. It's a real world aesthetic. Hate this loose fin. This is die-cast, that's probably why. Love the real world aesthetic sculpt for all of it. The windshield wipers and all that works for me. Even the smoked out translucent plastic works for me. I don't hate any of that. Paint still comes through, you know, as good or bad as you think they did, and either one is fair. But, yeah, I think it's a decent helicopter mode, in all honesty. All right, so this is where I'm afraid things are going to get touch and go. So we need to open up this connection points, which are not easy to connect in the first place, I'll have you know. There's one. There's another. And then you need to untab that so that we can separate these legs. So they should just split right down the center. Right? And then we need to get access to the thighs and just do whatever you gotta do. You can open up these doors a little bit But these thighs disconnect. Just gotta work it more. Let me see what's happening here. So it's literally just a peg, but it's just hard to get to. So just start wiggling. Maybe get a spudger. There. Whew. So we'll start with this one. Fillet of fish. Spin this to the other side. Oh, I meant to mention these wings, they rotate so they can sit up and down or out to the side. Speaking of which, let's collapse this in. And then this has to sit down there. And this, remember there was 2 sections of this. This needs to spin 180. This needs to spin 180. And fold in. The foot needs to come out so that when it spins back around, it comes up and over, sits like where the natural foot was. You know, and it seems like a lot of movements, but it's really not all that hateful. And then this flips over, and this flips over. And then your heel comes around and plugs back in to the foot. And then this section needs to get sorted out, so rotate and unfold both. And then all of this, and I've got something wrong there. There it is. And then all of this folds in. And tabs in to form the foot how it was when we first started. So it's basically going back to robot mode. So it's the same on this side. So we're gonna fillet a fish. Find out which way it goes. There we go. Open that up. Rotate the knee to the opposite side. And then all of this needs to collapse down and in on itself. This tabs back in. There is a tab there. You see, like a tab. There we go. Make sure that this fin is facing upward. And fold this piece in. We got to get our foot sorted, so open this up to the opposite side. This shin has to come up so we can orient our foot to that. Rotate down and around. Build the heel. Peg in. Open up our flaps, 1 and then 2. They'll come around. There's a peg here at the back of the knee. That goes into that port there. And then all of this closes up. This comes down to form the bottom. This comes around and tabs in there. And the foot collapses up against. and then I'll clean it up a little bit, but that's basically it. Then we're gonna open up this, similar to what we did to get the helicopter in. I'm gonna fold this white panel all the way back, and then we're gonna take our two legs. There's a tab connection there, and this goes up towards the elbow, and you see these tabs there. They peg into the side of the... we just got to sit it in and then adjust it. 1, 2. Oop. 2, I say. And then this piece comes down and grabs the front. 2 tabs. And I might have to do this off camera. I'm going to need to do this one off camera too, I'm sure. But this notch here connects with that part, and then you just have to put the helicopter back together again. And like, you've seen me do that once. That's just what you do. Let me clean it up, we'll come back. And there it is. And this isn't quite right either. Like, I can't get this to sit all the way up in there, so to speak. Oh, I almost got it. Like, yeah, I can't get those red tabs, but that's the closest I've got it. So that's been honestly the most frustrating part about the whole transformation sequence, is just getting that locked in. Of course, it's for combine mode where I need it, but anyway, bicep swivel, ratcheted, elbow, wrist, hinge in, out, fingers are individually articulated, shoulder, upward movement, around, even has a butterfly joint. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited, man. I haven't seen a whole lot of progress on Hotspot, so who knows, but I am relatively excited. So, whew, that's enough for one day. Somehow. Final thoughts-wise, we'll start with the negative, and the biggest issue with this guy isn't the transformation. That's not the smallest issue either, but the biggest issue with this guy is it feels like junk. Part of that is the fact that the flippin' calves won't really come together and stay locked together in any real meaningful way. Part of that is because the hip joint grinds up against the pelvis, not in a good way. Part of that is because the legs feel light and flimsy, plus the knee joint rotates. It doesn't have outward movement on the shoulders, so posing gets tricky. Like, they'll raise up and they'll go around, but they can't go out in a T pose, if you will. When you use the ab crunch, the transformation of the chest and torso starts to fall apart. The tabs and the thigh, or the shin rather, are constantly coming unplugged. All the stuff that's hanging off of his arms gets in the way of everything. The red paint, while painted, doesn't pop. This thing's got a lot of problems, buddy. And you know, the transformation process does need to be spoken about, but it's really not as awful as it seems. The problem is, like I said, it's just confusing, not necessarily frustrating. It's not intuitive. The only part that I was frustrated about was literally one of the last steps of getting the combiner mode piece to plug in, and that's it. Everything else was just like, man, what is the intention here? But it wasn't that disastrous. Moving on to the positives, it's fully painted. The head sculpt is nice. The proportions are decent. Comes with a ton of accessories. I think the helicopter mode looks great. The combine mode seems super stable. Only time will tell on that one, but it does kind of pay off weight-wise, hopefully, because the bot feels light, but it also feels light and almost like flaky, whereas the combine mode actually seems more solid, with the exception of that piece I can't get to connect. So look, this is a terrible figure, but it might end up being a decent arm. Hope that helps. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.